We're going to start our meeting. I'm going to share my screen for a minute so I can show the agenda for tonight, because this is the only way that I can remember what's happening from moment to moment, is if it is literally right in front of me. So here's our agenda Rooney for tonight. Call the meeting order. We're doing that right now. We're going to review community agreements. I sure hope I have the right ones, and if I don't, I'm going to lean on Paolo and Dory. We'll do minutes approval. We have a couple of sets of minutes. Now is the moment, part of why I'm going over the agenda, now is the moment where if you haven't looked at the minutes, you want to at least have them open in another tab on your computer right now so that you can look over them so we can approve them. Public participation, the last time I looked, it didn't look like we had any attendees from the public, but we'll check back on that.
We do.
We do, excellent. Liaison updates, roundtable recap, and then we'll do kind of our normal start of the year stuff. So talking about what is HREC. We're not setting our priorities, but we want to have some discussion around priorities, and then we will have space for elections. Dory, go for it. I see your hand.
Oh, just was going to say, suggestion on the minutes from the 13th. I took a picture, Paulo, I sent it to you. So there's just 1, 2, 3, 4 changes.
Okay. Dory's ahead of us. We're not even.
I am. I'm throwing it out there so we
That's fine. That's perfect. So that we can be ready.
Get there and get done.
All right. Fabulous. So that's the agenda. I am going to go ahead and go over our community agreements. Again,
I'm going to resend it to you. I realized I didn't include it in the attachment. So just so you know, you'll have it in your email in just a second.
Great. Thank you. I was like, I don't think that I have this in my email, but I happen to have it up on my computer already. Do these look right?
Yeah.
Okay. We have not updated them since 2019. That was my big question. So these are our meeting norms. This is what we adopted in 2019. These are a working document. These are a fluid document. If this is something that we want to revisit, we revisited them last year and we all said, yeah, I still like that. We might do the same, but it's something to consider. So this is what we're working off of as our assumption for how we're all coming into this with this shared set of agreements. I am going to use a classic teacher strategy of popcorn. Instead of me reading all of them, I will be picking on some of you to read them. So I'm going to read the first one, and then I will say popcorn, and who's going to read next. So be ready. So use correct names and gender pronouns. And I'm going to popcorn to Tanya.
Keep an open mind. I'm going to popcorn to Dory.
Corn, be respectful, pop, Angelbean.
Maintain emphasis on the group as a whole, avoid divisiveness. Pop it over to Joy.
Hey, stay on topic. So I'm going to pop it over to Spencer.
Respect time. Go to Jarrett.
All right, consider all manners of participation. I'll pop it to Cameron.
Cameron's here.
Take care of yourself. And Tanya, because you popped up.
Oh, I've done it, so I'm going to pop it over to, I don't have my names up. Who, one of the new folks.
Let's go to Sabdi, because I see
sure.
Sabdi.
Let's do that.
Practice patience. And I will pop it over to Stephanie.
Assume positive intent and understand impact. And
Stephanie, would you like to popcorn somebody?
And I will pop it over to Mercy. Has she gone?
Hi. Remember whom we serve and why we serve.
Mercy, would you like to choose somebody to read?
Oh, geez, I can see everybody. Has Joy been on? Dora?
Say Brandon.
What about Brandon? Yeah.
Okay, Brandon. Okay, Brandon. Yeah, okay.
No, you, Brandon.
You are muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you for some reason, Brandon.
Brandon, are you there?
I see Brandon moving, but I can't hear Brandon.
I usually use my headset. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes, thank you.
Be willing to accept feedback. I popcorn either, I think Paulo or, I don't know if I'm allowed to popcorn. You Paulo. Is that?
Brittany.
Do it.
Speak loudly and clearly.
Awesome. That was beautiful. Thank you, everybody.
What was that? I couldn't quite make it out.
That was great. That was fantastic. I kept considering over the last year if we needed to update those specifically to have like virtual meeting norms. And we never actually got that far. I want to open up for discussion right now. And I'm just going to say, if you have thoughts that you want to share, you can share them out loud. You can share them in the chat. Oh, I'm so sorry. I actually didn't mean to take it off screen sharing. Wanted to leave that up. So taking a look at those, if there's anything, and hearing those out loud just now, is there anything that you feel is missing? Is there anything that you want to change? So this is just an open space for if folks have feedback on those. Here's what I'm going to do. Or anything that you think needs clarification. I'm going to post it in the chat because it might be a little.
Laurel, would this include just what we've learned about how to use Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is a great space to talk about that.
I think whenever, unless it's our turn to speak, I think everyone should stay muted, because even the slightest transient sound can make it difficult or impossible to hear the person that has the floor.
I like that. So kind of default to muting yourself unless you're actively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of them are still applicable to Zoom. To Zoom, and like, yeah, you can interact different ways. It's kind of relevant, and
I think so too. I found myself wondering if this doesn't necessarily need to be formalized as a norm, but I found myself thinking that I keep forgetting and needing to remember to rename myself with my pronouns. So I'm actually going to do that right now while I'm thinking about it. So it doesn't need to be formalized within our norms, but it's something that I wanted to put out as a reminder. And as folks have other feedback on these, this is not the only time that we can revisit these. So as we move forward in our meetings, let's keep these alive and living. Dory, you look like you're about to say something. Please just talk.
I just had one that I thought we might want to add, and that is name what we mean specifically, use specific language, and avoid euphemisms where possible. So, for example, if I am talking about Black people, I'm going to say Black people, not people of color.
I like that. Welcome, Kathy. That's cool. I like that. Yeah. I'm gonna move us to our next agenda item, if that's all right with folks. I like this. This is good. These are good thoughts. And I want to just encourage everyone to keep mulling over this, and especially keep pondering if we need to adopt different norms for Zoom meetings, if there's other stuff that just comes up for you where you're like, oh, I want us to add that or I want us to discuss that, let's pop it out there. Next on our agenda was going to be public participation, but I see that Kathy was our public participant, so welcome, Kathy. Actually, sorry, we're going to do minutes approval next. Dory, can you talk a little bit about where? I'll go in order. I'm going to screen share. I'm going to screen share the minutes from the 6th. So the first set, which I think are not the ones that you had corrections to, is that right, Dory? Okay. So I'm gonna screen share these. Hopefully you had some time to review these on your own. I'm gonna mute myself and be quiet for a little bit so that if folks need to discuss the minutes, or if you have questions or additions, or if you want to go ahead and move for approval, I'm gonna mute myself so I can leave space for other people to do that. Any questions about additions, corrections, comments on the January minutes? See, this is the part where this is my teacher voice talking. Like, this is the part about defaulting to being muted that always freaks me out, because when I'm in a quiet room, I'm like, that terrifies me. I've never been in a quiet room. So then this is the space for I guess I'll move that we approve the January minutes.
I'll second that.
Excellent. We've got 2 seconds. If you are in favor of approving the January minutes, will you indicate that in some way? We have a lot of ways to do that. Oh my God, and then everybody moves.
I was talking this whole time, didn't realize I was muted. You have quorum.
11. Okay, thank you. 11.
Sorry.
All right. January minutes approved. This is the part where I want like
the hands functions, the raise hand functions for voting, because we could put that in our community agreements if you want.
There we go. So actually, I felt like we, I thought about that, but the thing that I think, I really like that we have consider all manners of participation as part of our norms already, because I've noticed, I feel like that encompasses a lot of the potential weirdness of being in this virtual space, that like I feel like we're doing a pretty good job of including like using the different reactions, using the chat feature. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna screen share, and then which then means I won't be able to see anyone.
We have one thing, Joy.
Go ahead.
Yes, I agree with all forms because it's hard to raise your hand when you're on your phone. Yeah. Tough.
And by hard, we mean, I think possibly possible. Okay, so these are the minutes from our special meeting on the 13th. And I know that Dory had some additions. So I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to let Dory have the floor.
Thanks, Laurel. It's just in that SRO section. There's just a few. Second bullet, Dory, this is a wrap up. The research about SROs shows that SROs negatively impact kids of color. Recommends looking at multiple resources. Then there's the third bullet that starts with Laurel. How is this? Space needs to be taken out between this and A. And then the second bullet from the bottom, all opinions should be heard and included in the recommendations. So those are the modifications, folks. They're not huge. I just want to make sure that we're accurate. And I'm sorry, then under community engagement, the third bullet where Cameron said, would love to see the police to communicate, would love to see the police communicate in a healthy way. Taking out the two. So those are all the changes that I saw. Were there others that other folks saw? I can't see you all. So can I move to approve with those changes? I move to approve with the changes noted.
Second. I think Spencer is waving for a second. Or peace sign or thumbs up, one of those.
All of those. Excellent. So those in favor, raise your hand or indicate your approval in some form.
You have quorum.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Now, oh, look at that. I can close some windows. Next on our agenda is public participation. Now is actually public participation. Lisa, you still have your hand up. Is that residual or do you still have stuff to add? Okay, cool. So next would be liaison updates. Paolo, I'm going to just turn this part over to you because you are the only liaison who is here. And I don't know if you sent other stuff that I didn't see.
Yeah.
Sorry, Counselor Hassan, you're also here. Sorry, I see you there. I know that you're here. Sorry.
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, you're talking at the other part for the other thing. I'm going to stop now. Paolo, you talk for me.
All good. Just a few things. I spoke to Chief Groshong and Lieutenant Stellenwerf yesterday, and we all kind of agreed that, hey, you know what? We've been running so hard for so long, and police reform is not easy to talk about. Let's go ahead and take a little bit of a break. And let's have HRAC folks take a break from BPD stuff. And let's have them take a break as well. And let's all just kind of take the night off from this work, and we will come back to it. And so the chief was going to be here, and I just said, you know, if you want to go ahead and take it off, by all means. And so, but the chief said, absolutely, if folks want to get a hold of me, they can. And she is happy to come back at future meetings as well. But I did share Lieutenant Stellenwerf's updates. So if you have any questions, y'all have Lieutenant Stellenwerf's contact, or you could share it with me and I'll send it over to them. I guess I'll keep talking and I could talk about staff liaison updates. So I already sent y'all the updates, and just for some of the new folks, in case I didn't reiterate this before, how we've been doing this prior is before we used to have all the liaisons, which you have a staff liaison, you have an MEAB liaison, you have a council liaison, and you have a BPD liaison. HRAC's got liaisons. Instead of sharing all the updates in the meeting, we found that it was really productive to send them ahead of time, and then they could just share a few highlights on them in this space. So some highlights I'm going to share actually I did not share with you prior because this was just recently confirmed, but I'm going to read from my phone here if I could unlock it.
Hey, Paolo, can I have you pause for just a second?
Yeah.
I want to do it. I want to do the thing that is my superpower, because I'm really good at being the kid who asks the question that nobody else wants to ask. Are you 100% sure that you sent out liaison updates to everyone?
Well, now I'm not.
So I feel like we're all being a little bit polite about okay. I don't think I've seen these. Can you maybe forward them to us?
Go ahead and resend it then. That way.
Thank you.
But so one of the updates that isn't on there because it just recently went down. So there's going to be a Building Bridges 6-part workshop series exploring race, relationships, healing, and connections with a local educator, Alexis Brayley James. I'm not sure. I see a few nodding heads, so I am not as familiar with this person, but they have a good reputation in the community, and this will be hosted through the library. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the chat where you could register and find out more information about that. And then thank you, Laura, for pointing out that I guess I never sent you the liaison updates, and I will send the rest of them to you shortly. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Councillor Hassan.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here on a Wednesday evening. Just from a city council perspective, I know that I can say that I really appreciated and enjoyed your presentation, and just with limited time, we didn't really get an opportunity to discuss it as a council. It is not forgotten. It is very much on our minds, and we're trying to find the best time to continue this conversation. So it is not a done deal in any way. I do know one thing, the legislature right now is doing some work around general judicial reform. So there's actually a Senate bill around SROs specifically. So that can also change some of the conversations as to what police reform looks like. So I think it's Senate Bill 238 in case you're curious. And there's just some work happening in the state legislature right now as well. So it is not forgotten, and we are working on it. I know I'm trying to make sure I get connected with the mayor. Because of this new form of government, we're kind of in this place of like, how do we continue to move this forward, this conversation forward, and what does that look like? So as the mayor said in that meeting, we're committed to it, and we're going to continue to do that. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to continue to share out with other city councilors. Obviously, I'm your liaison, so I'm hearing this, but if you have comments, concerns, things that you want to share, don't hesitate to reach out to any of your counselors. I don't know if it's officially published, but we've talked about publishing our email addresses on the website. So if there's something that you want to share with us that you think we should know about, please don't hesitate to reach out and share that. Am I supposed to share anything else, Paolo, about city council updates? You're on mute.
Goodness, I did it again. That is great. Thank you.
Okay. Do y'all have any questions? Happy to answer questions if you have any.
Could you say the name of that bill again, or the number?
I want to say it's Senate Bill 238. I'll type it in the chat once I'm 100% sure, but it's a specific bill removing SROs from school. Maybe Jared knows?
That's correct. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing I did forget to mention that I'll share is we are starting to work on our recruitment for a city manager. So as you know, we're in a new form of government. We have an interim city manager. He is scheduled to sort of carry us through transition, but we will be hiring a full-time permanent city manager who will be a huge person, not huge, but huge contributor to the work that we need to have here in the city. And so we're looking at ways that we can get input from the public and also designing the process of finding this person. So just something for you all to know about. It'll be a big hire for us.
And I see Kathy's hand, and then we'll go Kathy and then Tom.
Can I go with my
You're unmuted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, good. You may not know this because you're as new as I am here, but last year there was some talk about cahoots. And all that I have heard is that it was decided not to use cahoots. And I'd like to know more about that because more information is coming to us in the public domain, and there's so many good things about it. So I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to know more about that decision.
I can tell you that it's a new council. So there's a lot of new thoughts and ideas, and that before our conversation, before the presentation that you all gave us, I saw an article in The Atlantic about the Cahoots program, and I shared it with my fellow city councilors. So they know about it, and I'd encourage you, if you would like, to keep letting us know, and it is very much not forgotten.
And
yeah,
how should I keep letting you know? Oh, sorry.
That's fine. I can type in the email addresses of city councilors into the chat if you would like to just make sure that you have a direct line to us so that you can reach out to us and give us your public.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My contribution is this, I heard Senator Lou Fredericks, and I put it in the chat, talking on OPB about he's working to frame up or create a law for Oregon around how oversight committees should work. And so he hasn't presented anything. He's trying to work with both Portland and the lawyers who write up laws down there in Salem. So it's something that I'm curious about, maybe when we start talking about what to do going forward, that that be a part of a topic about the oversight committees.
And I think some of, not that we should be waiting on any of these conversations, we need to keep them alive, but I do think that some of what the state could do could inform what we do. So just trying to balance both of those priorities.
Cool. I just want to note something real quick. I noticed that we had a few attendees join us. And so hello, folks, welcome. Hello, Kosakan. Oh, hi, Kosakan. Karen.
Hi, Kosakan.
We did ask public participation already, but I think if we have time at the end, maybe we could go ahead and come back to that.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Awesome. Yeah, welcome attendees. It's really nice to see some human beings over there. We're doing great. Is that, so were we, Paulo, are we good on liaison updates? Did we actually get to all of them? So then next is, I'm going to turn over to Joy for a recap of our roundtable with council on the 26th. Go for it, Joy.
Hi. I'm curious who watched it. Nice. Awesome. So I can go through the slides if you want. Yes, no. We had very few slides. Paulo graciously arranged it so that we weren't sharing the agenda with a crowded agenda. So we got the whole hour minus about 5 minutes, and we even ran over. And Dory got props from the mayor about being a wonderful presenter, and she is. Let's just, you know, you can present anytime, Dory. I learn something every time I hear you. And then I did the 3 slides in the middle, and then Laurel tied it up with a nice bow. And I think we were received well by the city council and the mayor. They, because they ran long, they didn't have any questions for us, but we were thanked. There were good comments. Does anyone want to say what they thought that watched it?
I loved it. It was just Dory, just how you kind of took government and said, okay, government, chill out. We're all going to get grounded and be in the same room at the same time. I don't know what it was like for council, but I really, really like that you did that. And you did it very skillfully in talking to the powers that be. And the slides that were created were very conducive to discussion and clear. So yeah, I loved it. I thought you guys did a really great job. And for them to say, we want you back, it's like, okay, we can do that. Or I think we can. So thank you all for doing that work and presenting.
Yeah, and Dory did the slides, and I really appreciate that the slides were simple. It is easy to put too much on a slide, and there's an art, and totally Dory has that. Kathy.
Yeah, I would just like to give kudos to Laurel, because toward the end, she really, her tone was just, you guys are responsible, and these questions and so on Laurel, I really admired that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I have appreciated the privilege of working with this group to put that together. We did a ton in very short order. I think we crushed it. We did awesome.
I want to echo Joy. I just heard nothing but positive things coming out of that. I want to add that some folks who I know within the school district have reached out to me to talk about next steps around linking this work with the anti-bias, anti-racist push within the school district. So it feels this is a really cool moment for us as a board and for all of you for doing this incredible hard work. And I wanted to just encourage everybody, if you haven't already, to like take a moment and feel good about it.
Right? That was hard.
We did that. We're doing a thing.
And we're making government work for us, the people, is pretty awesome. To actually, really cool. We might actually get something done, like for real.
Just the level of like positivity and energy that I felt came out of that was really encouraging to me. So if all of you haven't had a moment to sit in that and really feel that, do that after, even right now, but especially after we get off this call tonight, sit down and take a moment and be like, yeah, we did that. That's pretty cool. Tanya, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just, I've shared it with other people at work, and it happened, the presentation was done at the same time the UN in group was doing interviews of Portland and what has gone on with police brutality in Portland. They went to 8 different cities. And if anyone wants to see the presentation that they did around the Portland police, and they had a parent talk about her what happened to her son, and then the lawyer who argued against the police. To have UN folks sit there and go, I don't understand why this happens in your country. I don't know what needs to change, but something needs to change. So if you want a link, I'll find it and send it. And I also have a connection to the lawyer who represented the family and supported them to get their rights approved. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Joy, is that good for our recap?
That's what I have.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I keep meaning to say that we should be making a habit of, this was a thought I had as we were talking about norms. We should be making a habit of linking to videos within our minutes, and especially like maybe in the chat as we come into meetings like this, because I don't know that everybody seeks that out. That would be something that we could explore doing. Next on our agenda, I'm going to turn it back over to Paolo for, what do we always call this? Nuts and bolts?
Call it that? Nuts and bolts.
Kind of like logistic stuff.
Yeah, just regular beginning of the year stuff that we didn't get to do before. And I'll just it's a little bit of a diluted version of it, and I'll speed through it. But just to get us all grounded before we discuss some possibilities for this year, I figured we'd review our bylaws. I sent you all a roster, so we're going to review that real quick. And just I'm going to share a little bit of info from HRAC pre-pandemic. What was that like? I don't know. And then I also just have a few logistical announcements to make. But I'm going to go over to the bylaws, and I'm going to share my screen. And share. Cool. So I really like what Laurel did about the popcorning other people. And so I figured, let's not, I think reading together long paragraphs on Zoom feels a little awkward to me, and so I won't have y'all do that. But I figured at very least we could go over the general purpose and duties from the bylaws, and then you all have a copy of those bylaws as well, and you're welcome to read the rest. And of course, let us know if you have any questions. But first, on the first page, Article 2 is the purpose, and I'll go ahead and start off. According to Beaverton Code 2.03.270, I definitely did not memorize that, HREC promotes integration of human rights, values, and principles throughout the Beaverton community. HREC shall act in an advisory capacity, and its duties shall include advising the city on strategies that strengthens those human rights, values, and principles. Just wondering if anybody needs or would like any clarification or has a question about this, or if anything comes up for folks. Okay, I'm looking through the screens. I see, looks like we're all good. I'm gonna go ahead and let's review these duties. And I'm gonna popcorn Tanya.
Was just looking at something else, sorry. Okay, bad student. Article 3, duties. Is that where I'm reading?
Yes, please. You could read A. And then pick someone else.
Okay. Recommend actions, policies, and legislation to be considered by City Council. Popcorn 2, Brandon.
Thank you, Tanya. B, provide human rights education and training opportunities. Popcorn, Mercy.
Okay, thank you. Promote harmonious intergroup relationship in Beaverton by enlisting the cooperation of various racial, religious, and nationality groups, business, community, labor, and governmental organization. Fraternal and Benevolent Association?
Benevolent.
Okay. Education and other group. Dude, this one's a hard one. Thank you. I park on to Cameron?
Cameron?
Yep. All right, so I'm on D. Listen to members of the Beaverton community about issues involving human rights in Beaverton. And let's see. Jared.
Okay, raise city council and staff awareness of potential human rights issues encountered by commission members or reported to the commission by members of the community. Stephanie.
Refer individuals to resources that provide solutions to specific problems of prejudice or discrimination occurring in Beaverton. And popcorn over to Spencer.
Make other reports to City Council as City Council may request. Are we continuing on?
I could go ahead and just read this last one. Number 2, as provided in Beaverton Code 2.03.002, HREC shall also make an annual report to City Council. The report shall contain a summary of activities HREC conducted during the previous 12 months. I will share too that the roundtable and what we did there, that's going to count as our report. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing this. Is there any clarification or anything needed for the duties? I'm going to assume that we're good there. We can always revisit this, and you all also have a copy of these bylaws. I want to do a quick what was HRAC before the pandemic. And so in the past, we actually created a timeline of almost everything that HRAC has done, or at least what I was able to find. Previous to me, there have been several HRAC liaisons. And so it was kind of hard to piece this information together and find who HRAC was and who HRAC was 20 years ago, because HRAC did exist over 20 years ago. One interesting story that I found out before is that the way HRAC started roughly 25-ish years ago was that there was a complaint that came to council. An Asian American family witnessed when they came out to their yard that somebody had lit a burning cross in their yard. And then this also came upon other attacks of racism and discrimination in the community. And from there, Councillor Bodie initiated launching the first Human Rights Advisory Commission. So that's some history of where HRAC started. I'm going to share my screen again here. And maybe. And can you all see my screen now? Cool. So let's go ahead and do this. Just a few things that have been happening prior. So we had the Creative Expressions Contest. The Creative Expressions Contest is really fun. It's a contest between K through 12 in the Beaverton School District. And so students in BSD are able to submit pieces of art, whether it be spoken word, dance, or poems, whatever creative art medium that they want to express what human rights means to them and why it's important. And as you can see here, we have on the left, we've got, it looks like Dory, Tanya, Tag, and Tom doing some really intense deliberation of selecting projects. And then to the right there, I love this picture. There's some of the winners there, some of the students, the winners. And, you know, aside from also just getting an opportunity to engage students and also seeing their beautiful art and also reflecting on the importance and value of human rights, it is also just another opportunity to get students in government buildings. You know, maybe one day, one of those kids is who we're going to be voting into office. Hopefully this one's sticking their tongue out. So that's the Creative Expressions Contest. This last year, we had the Creative Expressions Contest, and we did not, unfortunately, have students back at City Hall because it's right when the pandemic started. And students and parents actually didn't even take their projects back, understandably so, because their projects were all hanging in City Hall and probably collecting germs. And so some of these things too, you know, it's a matter of, I'm sharing of, is this something that HRAC wants to continue to do, or it's something that maybe makes sense to be put on hold because we're in kind of a weird year? And so, yeah, just be cognizant of that as I continue to share. Let's see, let's move on to the next slide here. Continuing the theme of engaging students. And I could talk about this, but I also want to ping Stephanie if you want to talk about this, and Stephanie led a lot of the work in creating the human rights curriculum. And I can't see the screen, so I don't know. Stephanie.
Hi, yeah, we have spent an incredible amount of energy and time really distilling human rights and the UN. I'm going to blank on
Declaration.
Thank you, the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Thank you, Dory. We spend a great deal of time really looking through that and distilling that down into some core elements so that we could begin to share those in classrooms around our community. And, you know, we've had such an amazing experience with that because the kids are so bright and so engaged, you know, but really it got down to the essence of, you know, why do we even have human rights? What is the origin or the basis of that? And the origin of it is that in essence, we are all valuable because we are. And that from that, the nexus of that belief, we then build on the specifics of what those human rights are, but that there's nothing that you could possibly do that could take away your value, and there's nothing that you could do that would add to your value, that being human is in and of itself an innate value. And so when we talked with the kids about that, it allowed them to really dive into some richer meaning, as well as then going to the place of getting into the specifics of what the UN Declaration held. And, you know, I mean, this happened in, was it 48, Dory? Do you know 1948? I believe that was the year that it was ratified, and it's pretty extraordinary how detailed it was, and it gives me hope in a way to think that in 1948, in a lot of ways, the world seemed a bit more progressive than it does today. So sharing those ideas and seeing the kids really attached to those was a central part of the work that we were doing, bringing that into the classrooms and beginning those discussions and creating a curriculum around that.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I love too that this was a little bit different in that when students might study the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and more memorizing the actual word for word pieces of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But this was more digging into the why and how it's applicable to the students themselves. And I love that. And I'll just add to that, Stephanie created this curriculum and actually structured it for different age groups as well. And I think maybe there's a hopes too to getting in schools again once schools are open. And huge thank you, Stephanie, for doing that.
Paula, may I also add that the Beaverton School District, I sit on the curriculum development team for the school district. And the wonderful thing was they were telling us what a great job ATRAC has done in creating proclamations for the city, and that they have even borrowed from those to bring into the school district for Black Lives Matter, as well as other human rights issues. So they've been looking at what we've been doing, and that partnership is really is a healthy and a strong one. So I hope that we can continue to nurture it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So community engagement. In the last couple of years, ATRAC has been in a lot of events, and there's been a big emphasis too from you all of we need to be in the community, we need to be engaging people. And I mean, that is one of the duties that we just read, right? Engaging folks. And so I picnic in the park, several welcoming week events, other city events, Beaverton Pride Parade. ATRAC has quite a presence, and it's grown, I think, exceptionally in the last few years. I love these series of photos. At least how I imagined it in my head is Tanya and Mercy here strategizing how they're going to engage folks. And then here's Mercy going in. Let's see, this was the first Pride Parade. I know many of you were there. I do want to share too that y'all got a lot of praise and love from city folks as well, because the city was actually working in partnership with another organization that led this. And then by the time the parade actually came around, they're like, wait, there's actually no city representation actually participating in the parade, but ATRAC was there, and actually this is right up front. So shout out to you all. Hopefully when events kick back up, ATRAC could be back out there again. ATRAC also does a Human Rights Award every single year. So these are some of the folks from the last 2 years. And so it's just something to be cognizant of as we go throughout the year. If there's anybody that you feel in the community, this could be a specific person, an organization, or group of individuals whom have done something significant in the community related to human rights. I'm remembering now, I also owe an apology to Stephanie, and I'm sharing this as fair warning for everyone else also. If you should ever have to show up in front of council, Stephanie asked me, Paulo, how should I dress for this thing? And I think the options were business formal or business casual. For me, being in City Hall is the fanciest I've ever had to dress outside of weddings or funerals. So I just assumed business formal. I know Stephanie wasn't too happy when she showed up and said, Paulo, this is not formal. So sorry about that.
I thought we were talking like cocktail attire. That's why I was like, really? That surprises me. But
So, fair warning.
Turns out business casual works well.
Business casual, yes. But do please think about, if there's somebody in the community or an organization throughout the year that you would like to nominate for the Human Rights Award. Let us know. Who are some of these last folks? So this was last year's, and I don't know why that photo is so cut off that way, but this is last year's. This is Maureen Kruger. She is a teacher in the Beaverton School District, who's actually the one, I think, Stephanie, did you connect us to Maureen? Possibly?
I believe you connected me with Maureen, and then we worked in her classroom, and I got to know Maureen quite well, and actually have maintained that contact. She's extraordinary, and she's doing extraordinary work in the Beaverton School District. Even today, she's working as a success coach now for Shoals Heights Elementary.
Yeah, and then previous to that, Marilyn and Stephanie nominated Katrina Rodriguez. Katrina works in the police department with the Victim Crime Services. And actually, Stephanie, I don't know if you want to share anything about Katrina.
I honestly would love to, because I can't say enough things about Katrina Rodriguez. She is amazing. She runs a program that is complementary with the Beaverton Police Department. And what they do is, when there is a domestic violence situation, once they have secured the scene, they call in their workers, which Katrina leads that team, trains community members in that, and it's 24/7. So at any time that there's additional support needed for the victim, the police department calls in that person and allows that person to provide support to the victim and to make sure that they have the resources that are necessary in order to best support their situation. And they also have follow-up services as well. They direct them to the right places in the social services that they need. And it's a very trauma heavy kind of job where it's very immediate. It's right as the police are there. So it's extraordinary work, and I'm really proud of our police department for partnering with them.
Yeah, thank you. I'll also share too. So one of the other things I do at the city is I coordinate the language access program, and Katrina actually just got a bunch of these victim services cards with resources on them. And we have them translated in, I believe, 7 different languages. And so through that program and on their website too, I just share this in that we should be, as much as possible, I try to promote it to folks and let folks know that it even exists. And so just shameless plug. The HRAC has in the past signed on with various proclamations, put forward various proclamations to council. Here's just a few of them. By all means, totally something HRAC can do again. I personally don't like to put forward a proclamation unless there's somebody from the community or an organization in the community that could actually put it forward to council. I personally, I don't identify with some of these things, so it wouldn't make sense for me to do it. But if there's somebody in the community or somebody here who would like to put forth a proclamation to council, let me know and we can move forward with that. And so that's all I have. Just wanted to share some context there. Any questions or anything before we move on? How do I stop sharing my screen?
I know I'm talking a lot, and I promise this will be my last one, Paulo, but I also wanted to add that with those proclamations, oftentimes those have been attached to with real action, like Indigenous People Day. We've been in the libraries. We've been setting up display centers that have a lot of information on Indigenous people and books that are very educational. And the great thing about setting up a display in the library is that once that display's up, those are the books that get checked out first and that people are most engaged and interested in. And so, it's more than just a proclamation where city council has it or a statement of belief, but we've really worked hard to move those actions forward so that they're working in real time and that we're impacting real people. Okay.
You're definitely not talking too much. I think this is all great stuff. Keep going, Stephanie. So I just want to share a few announcements before going forward. First off, the roster, and I'm not going to share screen the roster because I don't want to, put it to the public everyone's address, phone number, and email. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is go ahead and check out the roster and let me know if we have the correct phone number and the correct email on there. And if you could just go ahead and you could just private message me. We'll just go that route. Dory, I believe I have yep, gotcha. Yep. Because the city just pulls the emails that were on your original application, and then often, emails change. I have, I think, 4 emails for some of you. And so I want to make sure that we have the right one on there. So if you could please just go ahead and let me know. And Dora, I have yours noted. The other thing is, y'all are familiar with the name Francisca Rose, or at least many of you are. She's the one who coordinates a lot of the city boards and commissions logistics side. You will be receiving some emails for her for some trainings coming up. One of them had already happened, the board and commissions orientations. There's also going to be an effective meetings training, and that's going to be Thursday, March 11th, 10 to 11 a.m. And then there's going to be a recorders training, which is going to be Thursday, February 18th, 6 to 7 p.m. I know Joy went to the recorders training, and maybe some folks here went to some other trainings in the past. I'm wondering if you have anything to share about those trainings. If not, that's fine too.
No, that's fine. I had to find the mute button. I actually decided that it's a pretty cool organization that will train me to do exactly what they expect. That's awesome. I don't get that at some jobs. And they feed you. So that's bonus, good food every time. So I took all of them. And I'm so glad they helped me in other organizations I'm in, how to organize a meeting, some ways to rethink how you organize a meeting and how you run it, and that sometimes it's best to have someone else do it. Clearly, the recorder training paid off immediately. But no, I took all of it, and I'm looking forward to, I went to the orientation this time and got to see some of our new folks there, because I got to be out in a breakout room and have some good conversations with our new people. And so they're developing a class on virtual meetings, and I can hardly wait. So even if you want to do leadership or not, I highly encourage you to go to all of them. They're wonderful.
Thank you.
I echo that. I went to the effective meetings training last year, and I agree with what Joy said. I've carried that information out into other organizations. It's been really, really effective. So
good.
I like them.
Now, unfortunately, they're going to be virtual, so there won't be any food, but sorry to be a downer, but maybe one day. And one day when we are able to meet, I bring food to all the meetings, so we'll make up for it. The other thing you should also be getting from Francisca, an email for your cards and badges. So does anybody have their badge? Nope, no one has a badge on, but usually everybody can have a little name badge that has their name, pronouns, and then Human Rights Advisory Commission. And it's just because often many of you in the past will go into meetings representing HRAC. And so that's good to have, as well as business cards. And so she will let you know, or she'll let you know next steps if you need anything new. If you have business cards and anything changed, you'll just coordinate with Francisca. She let me know that she'll be emailing you all probably next week. The other thing, this is my fault. So in the past, many of you have sent me an article or an FYI or a flyer for an event happening in the community to share with everyone else. And I said, people are probably getting email fatigue seeing my name in their email. So why don't you send it? And it'd be great too, because then it's another way for y'all to build together. I've been asked to stop doing that. Go ahead and keep sending me your stuff. And y'all are just gonna get email fatigue, and I will forward it all to you. So sorry about that. And on that note, really what that harps to is the public meeting laws of we should not be having conversations over email. We should, because if anyone were to respond respond to everybody, we could be dipping into private policy laws. So that's what that is. That's all I've got for this piece. I'm wondering if there's any questions or anything at all before we move forward. Cool. I'm gonna turn it back over to actually maybe Councilor Hassan for the HVAC priorities. So Councilor,
introduce that. Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'll do the context part because Councilor Hassan saw you're looking like,
yeah, let me just throw some eyes on you.
Feel like y'all set your own priorities, but okay. So typically at the beginning of the year, we like to figure out what do we want to do this year. And we like to begin by hearing what has City Council prioritized for this year, so that we can figure out, do we want to work in concert with that? Does it make sense for us? How do we want our work to overlap with their priorities? So we're going to hear from Councilor Hassan on City Council priorities. That does not mean that we are required to make these be our priorities, right? There's a really good argument in favor of let's overlap with what they're doing. There's a really good argument in favor of what are they missing that we can focus on. So this is really just meant to be information. This is not meant to be proscriptive for us in any way. Go for it, Councilor Hassan.
Wait, one more thing too. I just know that the councilor priorities have not been actually determined yet. But that said, I was like, Councilor, you're so awesome. And I think people would want to hear with you. I want to hear from you what you think we should be prioritizing and what you got out of those retreats. Full bias, totally appropriate here. So yes.
Okay, and that's why I made the face, because I was like, wait, priorities. So as all you know, we are in this new form of government. We've got this interim city manager, so we have not had a chance to really work on priorities. I could tell you from a very general sense, I know there's a lot around community engagement, ensuring we're really hearing from our communities, trying to build trust back within our communities as well. Those are just some things that I've heard. I think, so sorry. Hey, shh, excuse me. Sorry. I would say, I know that constituent relations, and so like how you get information, how residents get information about what's going on, like that's something that I'm really personally passionate about. And I've been talking a lot about language justice. So what does language justice look like if I don't understand what you're talking about? And I'll be really vulnerable with you for a moment. They talked with me for about 2 minutes about a right-of-way project. And I only know right-of-way, like, do you have the right-of-way? And then they were like, Councilor Hassan, you know what the right-of-way is? And I was like, I took a moment and was like, I'm not going to pretend like I know what they're talking about, because I actually don't. And so there's this whole thing about your property and home ownership. And I was like, so you can't call it the right-of-way project to the general public, because if I don't know what that is, I can't imagine, what the rest of the folks in terms of our residents here in Beaverton think. So those are just some personal things that I really care about. Obviously, we have to come up as a council with our priorities. For your reference, Councilor Tivnon and I, Allison, we're kind of the new people. We're coming in with all these fun, exciting ideas. And then you've got the current council that has some of their own priorities. So it'll be interesting to see where things shake out. If you have any specific questions, but obviously I want to make sure this is a great chance to hear from you all, so that when we do start having our own conversations about priorities, we can start focusing on that as well.
That's awesome. Thanks, Councilor Hassan.
I have one question, and sorry if I missed this and you mentioned it, but do you know when the council priorities might be finalized?
There is currently a conversation about trying to get that scheduled for late February, early March.
So maybe next month's meeting. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Councilor Hassan. So we were going to frame our discussion tonight. I'm just going to turn it over to Dory to talk about that Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to really talk about how do we center and ground our work in a broader context. Go for it, Dory.
Thank you. So, folks, what we wanted to do, because we didn't get to do this when all of us gathered in January, is to give you some foundational pieces. There was a quick video that we're going to watch. And what I would suggest, as you're watching the video, what is something new that you did not know about human rights, right? So to get us started, just take 30 seconds to jot down 2 or 3 things that you believe you already know about human rights. Great. And I'm going to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Finish your thought. So this video is a brief one that was made on the 70th anniversary of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. You also want to be aware that there is a Declaration of the Rights of Children. The United States is not committed to that declaration for children. It has committed to the Declaration of Human Rights. As Stephanie mentioned, there's some history that this video will go into as well. It's very brief, and we hope that it helps you to form a foundational understanding of the UN Declaration. So Paulo, please, after you.
Everyone can see my screen, yes? Cool. One sec.
I know when you share the screen, you have to like make sure it knows to take your sound.
Yeah, I pressed share sound, so let me try this again. And share sound, yes. Share. And it's not working.
You know what? I have it up, Paulo. I think I can do it too.
I'm going to stop share. I'm going to make you co-host. I don't know why my sound's not working. Sorry. Boom, boom, boom. All right, Dory, let's see if it works on your end.
Let's see if I can share. There we go. Let's see if y'all can hear it. Let me know.
The idea of human rights is that each one of us, no matter who we are or where we are born, is entitled to the same basic rights and freedoms. Human rights are not privileges, and they cannot be granted or revoked. They are inalienable and universal. What exactly are the basic human rights? Who gets to pick them? Who enforces them, and how? The history behind the concept of human rights is a long one. Throughout the centuries and across societies, religions, and cultures, we've struggled with defining notions of rightfulness, justice, and rights. But one of the most modern affirmations of universal human rights emerged from the ruins of World War II with the creation of the United Nations. The treaty that established the UN gives as one of its purposes to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights. And with the same spirit, in 1948, the UN General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document, written by an international committee, chaired by Eleanor Roosevelt, lays the basis for modern international human rights law. The Declaration is based on the principle that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. It lists 30 articles recognizing, among other things, the principle of non-discrimination and the right to life and liberty. It refers to negative freedoms like freedom from torture or slavery, as well as positive freedoms such as the freedom of movement and residence. It encompasses basic civil and political rights such as freedom of expression, religion or peaceful assembly, as well as social, economic and cultural rights. such as the right to education and the right to freely choose one's occupation and be paid and treated fairly. The Declaration takes no sides as to which rights are more important, insisting on their universality, indivisibility, and interdependence. And in the past decades, international human rights law has grown, deepening and expanding our understanding of what human rights are and how to better protect them. So if these principles are so well developed, then why are human rights abused and ignored time and time again all over the world? The problem in general is that it is not at all easy to universally enforce these rights or to punish transgressors. The UN UNDHR itself, despite being highly authoritative and respected, is a declaration, not a hard law. The main bodies within the UN in charge of protecting human rights mostly monitor and investigate violations, but cannot force states to, say, change a policy or compensate a victim. That's why some critics say it's naive to consider human rights a given in a world where state interests wield so much power. Others defend universal human rights laws and point at the positive role they have on setting international standards and helping activists in their campaigns. They also point out that not all international human rights instruments are powerless. For example, the European Convention on Human Rights establishes a court where the 47 member countries and their citizens can bring cases. The court issues binding decisions that each member state must comply with. Human rights law is constantly evolving, as are views and definitions of what the basic human rights should be. And as our lives are increasingly digital, should there be a right to access the internet, a right to digital privacy? What do you think?
So folks, what came up for you? What stood out? You can put it in the chat.
Scan and Go shopping's pretty awesome,
Sorry.
but don't take our word for it. Just ask our members. Save time and skip the checkout line, which we hear.
What came up for you? You can put it in the chat. You can unmute and just share. We'll just do some quick sharing. For me, the thing that always comes up is that the basic human rights that the UN sanctioned and put out as a declaration in 1948, much like other documents, how does that need to change over time? That's a question that I have. Laurel said she really connected to the idea of all of the rights outlined in this document being interdependent.
Then I saw Stephanie had that human rights cannot be taken away.
Yes. And I think Stephanie said it with really beautiful language that all human beings share and have the same value, even though we know that there are systems that may not assess that value equally. And then Councillor Hassan added right to internet. A few of us have been thinking about and talking about that idea, right? Once again, one of those changes that has come over time. Others. Did anybody learn anything they didn't know before? If you're curious around why the children's rights has not been passed in the United States, the United States is the only member nation of the UN that hasn't passed it. And the UN's take on that was that we offer a deeper, broader group of rights to our children. So therefore, we did not need to sign on to that declaration. Brittany put in duality of what is a human right versus what is accessible. And Sabi agreed with Councillor Hassan about access to the internet. So hold these in mind as we start to think about the things that we want to work on. I can say for me, going back and looking at every time I look at the 30 articles, I look at something new. And the one that always sits with me is Article 26, because it's a right to education. And then today I looked at Article 27 very closely in the context of what's going on in Beaverton with the research center, and said that's also one that we may want to address, which is everybody has a right to the arts. So Laurel, do you want to take it from here as we talk about this next piece?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, Dory. I appreciate having that. I appreciate that we took some time this meeting to take a big collective breath and instead of zooming on to the next thing, it's felt really good to me to give ourselves time to settle into where are we coming from? What's our context here? So I wanted to talk a little bit about I just wanted to give us some space to get a sense of what people are interested in for potential focus areas for this year. I'll talk a little bit, kind of as Paulo did, I want to talk just very, very briefly about what have we done in the past, and not as a prescriptive, because we've done this in the past, we should do this going forward. But in the past, when we were meeting in person, we would typically have like subcommittee time, and smaller groups of people would attach themselves to a particular goal or a particular area of focus. We are more limited in our digital meetings in the way that we can utilize our time. So subcommittees probably don't make sense, but certainly having the context I wanted to give there is that we don't have to come up with one single focus. So those of you who have just joined our commission, and especially people who are coming in kind of on the heels of this work with the Beaverton Police Department, that is atypical for us. So to choose one very specific thing and to have that be really all of our meeting time, not typical for HRAC. So please don't feel like this is a process of figuring out, okay, what's the one thing we're going to do this year? And also, what I want to do tonight is really gather as many ideas as possible and hear from everyone about what is something that you would like to work on or think about this year. So I'm going to give a really broad question. And what I want to start with is just this broad question of, we talked last time about kind of what did you come into this wanting to do? And the question that I want to put to everyone is just the really broad question of what are maybe some hopes and dreams that you have for HRAC for this year? What's one topic or question or problem or aspect of human rights that you would like to focus on? And Dory, I'm taking a page out of your book, which is, let's do a moment of, and if you want to turn your camera off, that's great. I'm going to turn mine off and you'll hear me talking still. Let's take a moment and do some just deep breaths, close your eyes, give yourself an opportunity to think deeply about this. What do I want? What are my hopes and dreams for this year? What is something that I would like to focus on? Let's just do one big, deep cleansing breath, and then I'm just going to give you some silence. All right, and let's come back as a group. When you're ready, if you can turn your video back on. And it's important to me to get to hear from everyone. I am going to call on people to share. And I think I'll open it up to just as you want to share. We can go in sort of, you can pick the order. But just know that if you don't dive right in, I might call on you because I really do want to hear from everyone. So let's open this up. We can share in any order. You can share one thought, you can share a few thoughts. This is really intended to be a more open time. Lisa, I see your hand. Let's go for Lisa.
So I have a lot of thoughts. I've been thinking a lot about how the COVID vaccine rollout is going. I don't know how much City Council has control over that, but I'm just seeing a lot of like things that I'm like, I don't understand why certain groups are getting the vaccine and other groups are not. And I have pretty big concerns about that. That's a new concern I've been having. All of mine are like kind of healthcare related because that's what I do. Reproductive access is a big concern. And then just like there's definite disparities in health, like for particularly Black women who are pregnant. And I spend a lot of time worrying about that. So those are the things that are on the forefront of my mind.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. Go for it, Jared.
Yeah, just to go off of that, the thing that really came to my mind was also COVID in a little bit different regard. Just how do we respond to all the inequities that we're now seeing exacerbated because of COVID? So whether that's, housing, whether that's, of course, healthcare, whether that's, access to internet to be able to work from home or do your school from home, things like that. Just how do we, as we enter this year, hopefully we'll start to heal a little bit from the pandemic. And then I think there are going to be a lot of people who are left behind in that process. So I'd like to find, I don't know if there are, certain issues that we hone in on in that regard, but that feels like it's going to be important coming up in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. Yeah, Mercy.
Yeah, looking out there and adding to what the last speaker said, there are a lot of things that are showing out now and during this COVID that really caught my attention. There are so many of them. But one thing is the fact that what's going to happen to the kids who are home, supposed to be doing school at home, but does not have parents to really help them at home. There are many kids out there. The parents cannot read and write. The schoolhouse used to be the only place they used to get help. They are left out. I wonder there's something we can do to advocate for the kids. There's so many things going on, and we can list all of them, but I'm just concerned about those kids and their education level.
Thank you so much, Mercy. So I see Brandon's hand, so we'll go Brandon and then Sabdi, and then Dora.
Thank you. one thing that comes to mind, especially over the last couple of years, is misinformation that's rampant in society. I don't know how to best articulate it any better than that. Just, fact-based journalism is teetering. Opinion, people can't determine what's an opinion and what's fact. And I think that it plays also into the rollout of COVID. Some information may be misinformation, some may be accurate, but in some cases you don't know for sure. So just from a general standpoint, it's just misinformation that's being broadcasted.
That's great. Thanks, Brandon. Let's hear from, we'll go Safi, Dory, Kathy, Stephanie, Brittany.
So I'm just going to hop in and agree with both Jared and Mercy. As the third person concerned about education, I'm also concerned about kids that are falling behind. And as much as I would like for the pandemic to move on, I just feel like we're going to have a bigger issue waiting for us when we do come back to schools when it comes to kids that are just behind because they didn't have support at home, because they didn't have access to internet, and because they have to send away and for so long.
So sort of that same concern of the after effects of the pandemic deepening existing disparities.
Yeah, and even if we were not in the middle of a pandemic, I'd be concerned about just making sure that we're staying on top of supporting the Beaverton School District when it comes to human rights education. But now I feel like coming out of the pandemic, we have another hurdle to deal with before we can even get to that.
So I'm going to piggyback on that, Sabdi, because I think one piece is kids being under-resourced academically. My larger concern, and this is why I focused on Article 26, is it's educating the whole child and taking care of the whole child. So what I'm seeing is schools are returning, but I'm not necessarily seeing plans around psychological support. And I believe children will need psychological support because they have all been traumatized by the pandemic. So I wonder how I might support and have people consider how they might do that, besides just putting kids back in school and having them learning.
Thanks, Dory. So sort of that healing centered process of what would holistic healing centered education, by the way, that's a hip new thing. So instead of trauma informed, we're healing centered. So instead of focusing on the trauma, how do we focus on the recovery? That's awesome. Thanks, Dory. Let's hear from Kathy.
I'm really concerned about following up with some of our criminal justice initiatives or recommendations. And what I'd really like, there's so many, but what I would like to focus on should not be part of criminal justice. And that is people with mental health issues. And I had asked about CAHOOTS because in Eugene, 10% of the CAHOOTS responses include a call to the police, and 90% do not. And the model that we're buying into with Washington County is a policeman is part of every call, and maybe a mental health person would also come along on that crisis team. If it's a crisis team, they do. But if we can focus on mental health, then it's not part of the criminal justice system. And I would like to withdraw what we can from that system.
Thanks so much, Kathy. My order says we're going to hear from Stephanie and then Brittany.
Okay, my apologies. I'm trying to do bedtime routine at the same time. I'm walking around with my computer. Teeth have to be flossed. I wanted to kind of riff a little bit off of what Brandon was saying, and what about developing some critical thinking skills and some accuracy in thought process. And what I wanted to riff off of that was saying maybe we can include that as part of our school initiative, because that with the curriculum development team, that's been my central focus, is empowering kids with information, and really empowering is not the right word. Teaching skill sets that allow kids to really think critically, because the amount of misinformation and the amount of conspiracy theories that are out there is extraordinarily damaging to our overall society. And quite frankly, I don't know if we're going to be able to rescue the adults that have delved into that, but perhaps if we focus on some of the children and making sure that they're getting those that core information and values, that could be something that we continue partnering with the administration, the administration within the school district on. And that seems like it would also go very nicely with, dealing with what Dory was talking about in terms of preparing kids for really the trauma that they have endured. And that really is all kids. It has nothing to do with socioeconomic group. I think some children have been more disadvantaged and has been more traumatic, absolutely. But even kids who have had a lot of help and resources are impacted as well. And so I think we need to look at it holistically, that every child is going to need support coming back into the school system. And certainly disadvantaged communities may need additional support. But I mean, I can speak to my own child and saying that, she was trying to make friends with a mannequin in Target the other day. Kids are not doing well with this. Yeah, it sounds cute, but when you're and it seems funny at the time, but when you're the parent and you understand where that's coming from, that her interactions have been largely Zoom based, or you're trying to socially distance at a park and make sure your kid doesn't touch anybody or see too many people, that it becomes very traumatizing. And I think no matter what, as Dory was saying, every child has been impacted. We certainly want to keep our focus on those we can help the most, but perhaps those two things, both what Brandon was saying and Dory was saying, maybe we were able to partner with the Beaverton School District in enhancing those.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Let's hear from Brittany and then Tanya. And then, as I posted in the chat, a warning that even if you haven't raised your hand, I still call on you.
Yeah, so sort of similarly to Brandon and Dory, I've been thinking about accessibility to information, because I don't think on a whole, everybody has the same accessibility as we think that they do. So sort of how do we get good, accurate information to communities that may not have access to that or know how to understand that? I think making it easy to understand and read and accessible in multiple languages is really important. And then similarly, I've been thinking about trauma and our response coming back into society whenever that might happen, and how all of us have lived in isolation for the past almost year now, and sort of what that looks like and how we deal with that as a community. Because I think a lot of us adults have pushed off our trauma and trauma response responses to take care of those around us. And so how do we deal with those too?
Thanks so much, Brittany. Let's hear from Tanya.
There we go. So I want to kind of echo what Kathy was saying. I have real concern about how do we keep the momentum going with the police. My first year here, we were working on homelessness and housing, and that just kind of got weird. And we didn't, I don't know, that my first year, we seemed to be very split on what was happening. And then last year, great focus, loved what was able to happen. And then we're into this new year. And one of the concerns I have is that we don't chase the bright, shiny object at the expense of, you know, the work and the incredible work that people did in this group to research, to, you know, bring speakers to us. That was a lot. And so I would like that to be part of our future. And I'm also really touching in on what Brandon has said and someone else said about truth, you know, and having accurate facts. All the research I've been looking at around that is that logic does not work with people who are into conspiracy. What works is emotion. And because they are in a place where there is fear, feelings of disrespect. And so that behavior comes from a very honest place that has been lost in the crazy town, you know. And I have a friend, PhD in psychology, got ripped out of Facebook and had to create different YouTube channels because he's so off the wall now. And so it can happen to any of us, but I just want us to figure out maybe how to engage the community in a way that works, that we're not doing fact checks, but we're listening, doing maybe listening sessions with folks, because there's what we want to do and there's what our community needs or wants from us. And so that's all I got.
Tanya. I wanted to call attention. No, I'll save that for the end. I was going to call attention to some of the potential priorities we talked about a little bit toward the end of last year. But I'm really still hoping to hear from Spencer, Anjmin, Cameron, Joy. Go for it, Anjmin.
Hi. So I've just really been listening because I don't know where to divert my attention and this group's attention to. So I want to echo this kind of emerging theme I'm hearing of wellness during and after this ongoing pandemic, especially for our youth. And this is a collective trauma. And I think we need to address that, not just individually, go to a counselor. Although I'm a counselor, I would love that if everyone did, but just how would we as a system in the city of Beaverton help with that process? And there are ways to do that. And so I really want to echo that. I also want to echo and put my hat in there with making sure that this work we did last year with the police accountability and police reform is not just something that's sitting on someone's desk and nothing happens with it. Because we know that does often happen with large systems that are in power. So I think somehow keeping that going, whether or not it's a direct topic of work this year, but maybe if a subcommittee or maybe even all of us just keep tabs on that and keep nudging forward those changes. And then finally, I've really been sitting a lot with environmental justice. And I don't know if you all read the study that came out last year who was it? What entity was it? The Trust for Public Land, that found that parks serving primarily non-white populations are on average half the size of parks that serve majority white populations and are potentially 5 times more crowded. And with this topic, I think there is opportunity for cross-committee work, right? I can't remember the committee that does work on infrastructure or things like that, but I think that's really important as well, especially in light of that the outdoors right now are maybe one of the safest spaces we could have access to as long as there's social distancing, et cetera, right? And so if you have less access to them because in your community there's less parks, then we're already kind of tipping the scales in the opposite direction and unfavoring communities that will have less access to that, right? So, and Dory, that's a great question. That might be working with them. But I want to say, was there a committee or a board that does work around this? Maybe I'm making it up. I don't know. So those are my 3 ideas. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Angelina. Spencer, that looks like a hand. I'll take it. Go for it, Spencer.
Sure, that was as close to a hand as I'll come. Let's see, agreeing with Tanya and Kathy and a couple of other people. In my experience, the way for a study or report to get adopted and implemented is to work on that. In my head is we form a small subcommittee out of this group that spends a good part of the next 3 to 6 months lobbying each city commissioner in the city to see that our recommendations become adopted. Maybe we won't get them all, but we can get some of them, and I think that's the way to do that. The new issue that I have kind of ties into environmental, and that is I have one of the things I wrote down about a basic human right is access to clean air, and the air around here is not clean. It is full of air toxics. The biggest source of air toxics in the Portland Metro Airshed is wood smoke. And it's not just forest fires. The only time we seem to pay attention to it is when we have forest fires, and everybody's all worried about it then and so on. But it's a 12-month-a-year problem. People are burning wood for ambiance in their backyards in the summertime. People who don't need to burn wood to heat their homes are burning wood in fireplaces. And the city could, if we chose this as a project, we could recommend to the city that they severely restrict the ability of people to burn wood in this city, especially in parts of the city where there's high density. I walk outside in the evening and I smell wood smoke. That's in the winter. But in the summertime, I don't know about you guys, but I keep all my windows open for ventilation and to keep the house cool and at night. And people are burning wood in their backyards for beer parties and stuff. That doesn't seem fair, because if I had kids with asthma, they'd be suffering as a result of exposure to their neighbors' ambiance. So I would like to think about devoting some of our energy to clean air. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Spencer. Cameron, let's hear from Joy. Do you want to go? Let's hear from Joy. We'll go Joy, Cameron, and then I guess I'll share too.
Thanks. Unless Cameron wants to go first, either way. I was thinking that the emergent thing, having been in the fire department. You do the most critical thing first. Well, there's something called tyranny of the urgent, where the more urgent thing, and you can't forget about the important thing. But the most urgent thing is COVID. And I wonder if there's a way for us to support the city in getting that done. I've been listening to Dr. Fauci today, who said we need to get it done by early summer and not the fall, because now we have all the variants coming. So that's only half the year. And then I have no problem with going back to pressuring the city council to adopt our recommendations or let us know how we can make them better or whatever. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution was introduced into every session of Congress for 45 years. A lot of folks don't know that. That's how women got the right to vote. I have no problem keeping the pressure on, especially since we worked really hard to put it together. We could first get everyone healed with COVID and make some community connections, and then put our thumb on the city. Sorry, Councillor Hassan, but you know, we worked hard.
Thanks, Joy. Let's hear from Cameron. Paolo is reminding me that we only have 10 minutes left in our meeting and I'm ignoring him. Go ahead, Cameron.
Honestly, I really don't have much of anything. I mean, most of this sounds good. I mean, sounds ambitious. Like, I mean, for instance, like COVID stuff, the city has literally zero input on that. Like, that is 100% controlled by OHA, and like, so I mean, sounds good. It's just yeah, keep on.
Thanks, Cameron. I really appreciate that. We last year when we talked about priorities, I did this crazy diagram on the whiteboard and talked about scope and like what do we actually have the capacity to impact. And I think that when we move forward with formulating these into actual like, and now let's go do this thing, I think that that is going to be a really, really, really important thing to come back to, right? Is like, and it gets sticky because the city of Beaverton is an entity. The Beaverton School District is an entity. There actually isn't really overlap between those two entities. They really like to remind us that they are very separate entities. And the Parks Department is also not the City of Beaverton Parks Department, right? It's the Tualatin Hills Parks Department. Like, it is a separate entity. So I think that context of like what is our scope, I think that's hugely important. I wanted to do a quick reminder about kind of past things that have come up. Sorry, I'm missing, I know there's stuff happening in the chat that I'm missing. I'll come back to that. I'm gonna come back to it. I wanted to remind people about, we had discussed prioritizing, we had a request from the public about pushing the city to create some kind of board or commission around accessibility for people with disabilities, especially people with intellectual and cognitive disabilities. I want to make sure we don't lose sight of that if that is something that we still want to continue to pursue. My priorities for the board are that we do things. My personal list is completely different from everybody else's, but I'm going to share it anyway because I feel like I have to hold myself to the standards that I'm holding all of you to. I'm the thing that stood out to me in, actually it is still related. It totally is still related. The thing that stood out to me in listening to and thinking about this concept of universal human rights is the idea that your rights cannot be taken away and that your rights cannot be taken away by your choices. And I really believe strongly that the worst decision you make shouldn't determine the course of the rest of your life. So I really care about and I'm really passionate about ensuring that the rights of people who have been arrested are upheld So I'm really trying to take from you, Dory, that idea of like, I'm not going to speak in euphemism. I think that if you get arrested, you still are a human being. And I want to do whatever I can to make sure that that's something that the city has to be accountable for, that when somebody is arrested, they are still a human being. And I don't know what that would look like, but that's something I feel really strongly
That's
about.
called a 42 USC 1983 action in which people like me sue the police. That's literally what that is.
Excellent. Okay, so Cameron and I are going to work on that.
No, not unless you got my hourly rate to pay.
Oh, I love it. So Counselor Hassan shared an announcement in the chat. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then I'm going to turn it over to Paolo for elections. I know we don't have time and I don't care.
I just, listening to you all, I was like, oh my gosh, Lisa, like you should talk to Representative Dexter. Like, I know that she's doing something right now in the House around healthcare. Like, let me connect you. And just, it's really inspiring to hear you all. So if you don't know, there is a city council seat that the mayor has vacated. That will be in the May election. I don't know when the filing information is. There's also open seats on THPRD and then the Beaverton School District Board. As Laurel mentioned, we all don't talk to each other very much and collaborate very much. And it's not because we're like, it's just a lot, it's a big lift. And so getting more representation of different people in those seats will help us move some of these conversations forward. And I think I heard a lot of passion specifically about the school district. And so there are 4 open seats. It is by zone or neighborhood. So you'll have to look up whether you're in the right place. But as someone who just recently ran and won with really very little experience in government, would love to lift others up. And so I dropped my email address if any of you want to reach out to talk about it, and happy to just talk with you a little bit. So
that's awesome. Thanks, Counselor Hassan. Paolo, can you lead us in elections in 4 minutes?
I will do my best. So we're just going to have us actually read the chair descriptions, but those are all in your bylaws, so you could go ahead and read it yourself. Maybe I'll ask actually if Laurel, will you actually go ahead and paste it in the chat just so that folks can go ahead and
Sure.
And then from there, I was actually going to call on the 3 current chairs, one to say thank you, but also give you just maybe to share a little bit about your experience in your position for this last year and what that's been like, and then go ahead and start leading us into actually nominations for those positions. So I'm wondering if I could, let's start with Joy. Would you mind just like 30 seconds about your role and what your experience has been like?
Sure. My role as recorder ended up being called a chair, which was unexpected. I learned a lot. And it stretched me, which is wonderful. And it helped me hone my listening skills to get it all down and to really feel like I'm interacting with all the information from everyone. It was really rewarding, even though I said this at the beginning and it hasn't changed. I'm not a note taker. So it was good.
You're good at it. So.
Good for me.
Cool. Thank you. Dory and Laurel, is there anything you want to share about your roles as chair and
Dory
vice?
first.
Okay.
I'm going to say that it has just been gratifying to work with you all. And I want to thank you all for the work that you did last year around policing, because that is not easy. It is not easy talking about those things. It is not easy having differing opinions. So I want to acknowledge this group did a very good job of having those discussions, and they got passionate sometimes. So I think that is wonderful, because passion is a necessary thing. So the year before, I had Joy's job. I was the recorder and secretary. This year as co-chair. The main thing that you want to know is that you will have some planning time outside of these meetings, usually about an hour to an hour and a half once a month. And I think that's important just for you to consider about your time and how you spend it. It was gratifying to work with all of you, and also gratifying to work with Joy and Laurel. So I think if you're looking for personal growth as well as volunteer growth, this is a great space to do that in. It's a great area to take on.
Really, really well said. Big story. I want to put in plug for the two chairs model, partly because hierarchies freak me out, but also because it has been we got a lot of commentary actually from from city council, that having really the three chairs model, right, of having myself and Dory and Joy all be there in an equal capacity. They had a lot of positive things to say about that. What you do as chair, if you are officially chair, is you're responsible for facilitating meetings. You're responsible for setting the agendas. You get text messages during the meeting telling you, Laura, we're going over time. That might just be me. So like Dory said, there's that outside of the meeting planning time. Echoing what Dory said, I have done all these things now. So I was the recorder, and then I was vice chair, and then I was chair. And it is a magnificent way to build some skills for yourself. If leadership is something that you're interested in, if you're thinking, I don't think I'm ready to run for that city council seat, but I think I might want to, you should put your name in the hat here. You should put your name in the ring.
Good point. All of our counselors at one point did serve on a city board commission. Wait, not anymore. Oh my gosh. Previous to this. Sorry about that. I was messing up on that. Cool. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, in addition, I know the three chairs model is something that's not really is the norm in the past, but I will say that, I don't know, my model is, I think y'all should take ownership of what this commission looks like. And, it's not like we're going to get in trouble or anything. If anybody does, it's me, and who cares? So this is your commission, and I love that. Like, I will always back that up, and whatever direction you want to go in, I'm going to use the very little bit of power I have to help make that happen. Okay, we are over 1 minute. So how this works now is y'all can either nominate yourself or nominate somebody else for a position. And then you could either, if you are nominated, you could either decline or accept a nomination, and then we will go into a vote. And so let's go ahead and start with chair. I already see one. Dory.
I nominate Dory.
Yep, there's one. Does anybody else want to make a nomination? And if you could please say it, because I'm not looking at the screens, I'm writing these things down.
I second Dory's nomination for chair.
And Dory, I know you and I talked beforehand. I know I'm throwing you under the bus, but I accept that you might say no to this. I just want you to know how much I like you and like you running the show.
Appreciate you, and I'm going to decline.
Thanks, Dory. I knew you were going to decline, but I had
collective shock for us, Dory.
but
even Asha said, "Why is she declining? Why is she declining?"
Hi, Asha.
Okay, sorry, kid break. Hi,
Asha.
Asha.
Hello.
We don't have to apologize for that.
Tall. Awesome. How's school?
Do you remember Mrs. Dory?
I get to hang out with third grade some. Right. Is it? Good.
Awesome.
I'm so glad.
I'd like to nominate Spencer for recorder.
Okay, we could skip the recorder. We'll come back.
How about Jared? Jared, would you like to be chair?
I would like to decline.
One at a time. So it sounds like we went to recorder.
Okay.
You said we could nominate anyone for anything.
It's true, but
let's stick with this recorder for now, because I'm going to try this poll feature. So I heard Spencer for recorder. Spencer, I didn't see if you accepted that nomination or not.
I would be happy to do that job. Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else for recorder?
I was also going to nominate Jared for recorder since he turned down the other offer.
I'm responding now. No, I think Spencer, if you're happy with that, I just have so much kind of going on in my personal life that I want to make sure if I take on a role that I have time to do it well, and I'm not sure I would be able to. So I think I would like to decline.
Is there anyone else for a recorder? 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna make it official. Spencer, you are a recorder for 2021. Yes, let's do that.
Yay!
Let's do it again. Cool. Let's go backward direction we're going. Let's do vice chair. Wait, does that make sense?
Let's go chair, then vice chair.
Let's do chair and then vice chair. Thank you, Laurel.
Or we'll just say chairs. Like we can continue
chairs.
to have that be like, who are 2 people who you want helming the ship?
Chair 1, chair 2.
So Dory declined the chair. Were there other nominations for chair?
Dory declined?
Yes.
Stephanie seems to have a lot of experience.
We're all
with
shocked.
Sorry.
Ashubin, would you be interested in being chair? You would be wonderful.
I tried that too.
I'm not laughing at your nominations. I'm very touched, and I'm laughing at Laurel. She did call me. I don't think I can do it. Paolo, I sent you an email, and Laurel, you know why. And yes, I don't think I can. So, because there are changes coming. That's all I will say. Thank you, though.
I haven't seen your email yet, but I will look at it.
What about Joy?
Yeah, I was thinking about Stephanie because she seemed to have a lot of knowledge about some of the things that had been.
Wait, so I heard Joy first and then
I'm
Stephanie.
sorry, I think I said Joy.
I'd work with Stephanie. What do you say, Steph? You want to partner up on this?
Whoa, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yes, Stephanie. Let's go, Stephanie.
Stephanie.
You'll have lots of support from us, both of you. We will do reading, right, guys? We will do reading between meetings. We will call people, right, guys?
So to clarify, I think I'm hearing Joy for chair, Stephanie vice chair. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, Stephanie chair. Is that what we said?
Co-chair.
It could be both. We could say we will have to do a vote. So I could put Joy and Stephanie for chair. First, I want to ask, Joy, do you accept your nomination?
Sure.
Okay.
I serve at the pleasure.
Stephanie, do you accept your nomination for chair?
Yeah. Sure.
That's how I felt last
Maybe last year. You didn't say yes.
It's my last year, so I was trying to decide where.
Yeah, I said that at the beginning of last year, and now here I am again. So just
I said that last year too. Yeah.
Are there any more nominations for chair? 3.
I'd like to nominate Mercy. Mercy, you've been on the committee longer than I have, and you've brought such amazing knowledge and wisdom. So I'm gonna put it out there, Mercy.
Thank you so much, but my plate is so full, and I mean, no, I wouldn't be able to even do it, and I'm already here. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Sounds like Joy and Stephanie. And so what I think we'll just do is look, I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. This is my first time doing this, so thanks for being patient with me. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, and I think we'll just take it. Thou should decide who our chair and vice chair is. Okay. So I think I did this right. Boom.
Is it in the Q&A?
And then polling, launch poll.
Ah.
Cool.
You should all now have do you see the options in front of you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I can't select.
You can't select.
Hosts and panelists can't vote.
Hosts and panelists cannot vote?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. This is what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to end the poll. And what I'm going to do is, you remember how I loved in previous years having you all close your eyes and then put up your hands? I thought I missed my chance this year, but I got it back.
Yes, go ahead. We can do it.
Here's the awkward thing that I want to remind folks that I hate this rule, but it is a rule. Alternates do not have the ability to. You have the ability. Alternates can't vote in this space, so I believe y'all know who you are. So I'm gonna have everybody close your eyes.
But can I just Paulo, aren't we recording?
I was gonna say the same thing, Laurel. We could all just
We're
jump
all
back
gonna
in there and
close
be
our
like, "You
eyes.
voted."
But if you want to go back and review the tapes.
No, but that's after the fact.
Can we just use the raise your hand feature?
Sure, we can do that. Yeah.
Sorry, Paolo.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Maybe next year.
I think we just took 10 years off of Paolo's life tonight.
I think so, right?
What are we doing now?
So folks, I'm gonna call out her name, and then you could do the raise handy feature. All right.
I'm sorry. I've never been able to figure out where that is.
So on the bottom side where you see polling, share screen, the chat, stop video, there's a little yellow hand, and you could press on that, and it will put your hand up. Do you see it?
Where? Share video, chat.
Jared, are you on an iPad by chance?
No, I'm not.
It looks different for us, Paulo. He doesn't have all that. He just has, Q&A chat, share screen, and then raise hand at the very bottom.
Okay.
I don't have a raise hand anywhere that I see.
It's also in participants. If you click on participants, it should come up on the chat, above the chat, and at the bottom it'll say raise hand.
Thank you. So
we could also just send a private message to Paula.
Yeah.
You could send me a private message, and then I will look at it and then have to cycle through it. So if you're willing to wait for me, you could do that.
Yep.
So, all right. So why don't you just send me your private message? Send me a name, either Stephanie or Joy, and give me a minute just to count.
I don't understand. I thought we were doing both Stephanie and Joy.
For chair, please vote for chair, and you could choose either Stephanie or Joy.
Very good.
And you're just going to send me a name. Okay.
This is for Carrie.
Oh, wow. These are coming in quick. Okay. Why are some of you sending two names?
Because we don't like hierarchies, Paulo.
Yeah, well, that's why we have three.
We're just disrupting the system.
We're fighting the system. We have to take it down.
We're rebels.
We're feminizing the system.
There we go.
There you go.
I'm going to ask the person
I feel like
1/2 vote for each to just pick one, please. Because it actually does make a difference.
Well, then,
It actually really does make a difference. So if you could please choose one.
I feel like I should have some sort of like the previous chairs have always had these like great departing words at the end of their term as chair, and I do not.
No words of wisdom?
I don't have any words of wisdom. I really enjoy being chair. And I'm really thankful that other people are stepping into the role. And I want to let Joy and Stephanie know that I'm happy to support you. However, I'm just excited to have other people at the helm for a while, because I think that the more diversity of voice we have, the stronger we are. So don't think that I'm like, peace out, but like whatever support you need, I'm happy to be here to do that. And this is going to be awesome.
Thank you. I'm going to ask.
And I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to be difficult, but I know it sounds that way. My choice would be for the two of them to work out the balance. Or maybe I'll just abstain.
We're actually at a tie.
Asha said that I'm going to be either Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. So, I mean, there we go, Joe.
Did you say it's a tie?
What was that?
Did you say it's a tie?
Yeah, that's what
one person submitted a half vote for each. That is, I'm gonna do the hammer thing. That is not allowed. If you could please use your one vote for one person. I know it's difficult, but if you could please write in the chat to me one name,
One
please.
name.
Yes, please.
Okay.
That's again?
No, I think the individual knows who they are.
Oh, okay.
If you can please, individual who shall not be named, if you could please send me one name.
When people tie, usually there's 2 first places and no second place.
Is there anybody who, Joy or Stephanie, do either of you not want to be chair?
Can't we just say co-chair and chair, or chair 1, chair 2?
I don't know that I can do that.
We can't because our bylaws specifically say that we have a chair and a vice chair.
Got it. Okay. Flip a coin, guys. Do we can do alphabet.
Okay, that's a
paper, scissors.
Okay, Stephanie, do you know parliamentary procedure?
One person at a time. I hear Joy, Cameron, and I think Jared.
So I motion that we decide this by coin toss.
I've never done this before. I'm up for it.
If Joy wants it, it's fine. It's fine.
I don't
know. Okay. It really is.
No. So
I
Laurel,
know it's fine, but why did we vote?
And
whatever.
I don't know.
I'll be happy.
If we can't do this tonight, let's postpone it.
So is there a second?
One talker at a time, one talker at a time. I heard Stephanie talking, then I heard Mercy talking, then I heard Kathy talking.
Okay.
Sorry.
Laurel has a coin.
Let's try it.
I second Cameron's motion.
Yep, I think
Let's decide by coin toss.
Let's say heads is Stephanie, tails is Joy.
Okay. I feel like a magician.
And I trust.
Just flip it.
My God, I dropped the coin. Okay, sorry. Redo.
Oh, this makes my head hurt. Oh, heads.
It's heads.
Okay. Right. Angela, Stephanie, you are our chair for 2021. Joy, you are our vice chair for 2021. And Spencer, you are a recorder. Thank you all so much.
But that means I get to lean heavily on Joy, right?
Yeah.
What is it I'm supposed to know? Parliamentary procedure?
Parliamentary procedure. I got your back.
You don't need to know anything, Stephanie. I'm here to tell you.
My friends, it has been so awesome to laugh with you and smile with you, and just the gravity of this meeting is also different. I love it.
This is a good palate cleanser, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I didn't have enough time to give enough love to what Laurel, Dory, and Joy did in this previous year. Seriously, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you. I think everyone else obviously really loves you too. So thank you. Stephanie, Joy, Spencer, let's make it happen. I'm stoked. Looks like Asha will be there too. So, all right. Thank you all so much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Bye. Good night, guys.
Thank you.